In retrospect, I do a lot of roguelikes. I'll admit that much. But it's not my fault, losing really is fun. Plus, unlike a bunch of the ones I've covered so far, I've actually beaten this one before I sat down to script the episode. So join me for a closer look. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek. Today we'll be taking a look at the indie title, Dead Cells, originally released in 2017 in an early access form, before eventually getting full release on PC, Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One in 2018, and later subsequent mobile ports in following years. Dead Cells is a roguelike 2D action platformer that takes inspiration from the likes of Metroidvania titles and has a strong emphasis on exploration and, well, action. Let's start with the story, or what little story there is for us to learn. We start our journey, or journeys if we're just being perfectly honest, in the depths of the prison block, where we emerge as a ball of green stuff, which possesses a conveniently discarded usable body, which we hijack for our own purposes. And while it turns out that this green ball of unknown substances may very well be immortal, the bodies it chooses to utilize are not so much. Thus, we need to find our way out, and along the way, encounter other pieces of the plot, like when we learn of 6 major overseers on the island, and that the island itself used to be a thriving kingdom at its prime, only to succumb to a sudden onset of what is known as the malaise, which corrupts and destroys all living things it touches. Eventually, the kingdom fell to ruin as its king locked himself away and became increasingly reclusive, as the citizenry either died or became the twisted monsters we now encounter. Thus, our only course of action is to hunt down those who remain and try to sort out precisely what happened here and what our role in it might have been. Graphically, the game is a thing of beauty. While the dungeons may be a bit dreary with a lot of dark blues and greens, the game hardly stays in that palette permanently. It's both pixelated and extremely colorful, sort of like a game that exists with one foot in the Super Nintendo generation and the other in the PlayStation 1 generation, and relishes a high-res, old-school experience if anything I just said makes any sense at all. Basically what I'm driving at is that the game uses pixel art, but it puts enough tween frames in every animation that the entire thing comes off as silky smooth front to back. Even the mundane monsters you'll encounter have a great deal in their robust animation cycles, to say nothing of the bosses who are just incredible in their own right. If you can appreciate the amount of work that went into each of them as they're kicking you across the battlefield. I just love the amount of detail in everything in this game. The backgrounds end up colorful and diverse, the details like things like flags blowing in the wind, and the fluid animations on literally everything that moves. From a sound standpoint, the music is more like ambience than anything else. Not to say that there isn't fantastic music, there absolutely is, particularly during the aforementioned boss encounters. But even from the title screen transitioning into the first leg of the game, you'll notice it will stay in a very downplayed and subdued kind of tempo by comparison. However, some later areas, like the rooftop area jumps to mind, some places like that will tend to buck this trend and kick it up a notch with high-flying adventure anthems, which is more suited to the sheer kinetic speed of this game. But if you must know where the listening experience is at, it's actually in the sound effects. Since you'll probably find the right tools for the job on any run that lasts a decent amount of time, you'll hear the larger-than-life whoosh sounds your weapons and spells make. It adds to the excitement and can be ever so satisfying, like bringing down a massive hammer atop the unsuspecting head of a zombie-like monster who has its back turned to you. On that note, let's break down the actual gameplay. Dead Cells, as said, is a 2D platformer with strong emphasis on sheer action. You'll begin every run with a basic sword and some kind of secondary tool, usually a bow or basic shield, and be let loose into the prison block to explore to your heart's content. The really cool thing is how the game progresses from there, as right away you're prompted to either clear an area as fast as you can in order to try out speedrunning challenges, or to explore every nook and cranny in hopes of finding additional items, money, or health, and some special bonus doors that only open if you destroy the prerequisite number of enemies. Personally, I play it slow and calm, trying to explore every nook and cranny in hopes of finding additional items, money, and health. And all these playstyles are completely valid. And since these dungeons are procedurally generated, you never know what goodies you might find in any given run. In a particularly lucky one, you may find super strong weapons and tools, and in not so lucky ones you might find really devilishly challenging sets of super boss encounters. But hey, if you beat said super boss encounters, the game usually gives you a lot of rewards, so there's that. Actually, the risk-reward balance is at the very heart of what makes the dungeon diving so enticing to begin with. Because in addition to gold, which you can spend during your runs at various shops and events, you also collect cells. These cells can be handed off to a craftsman who greets you in between zones for additional unlocks. These provide permanent upgrades, which carry over into future runs, including new potential weapons and tools, additional uses of your health-refilling flask, and much more, including power-ups that let you keep a portion of your gold upon dying. Now, if you die, you still lose any cells that you had on hand, that's just a given, and since there's no benefit in holding on to cells beyond the first opportunity to cash them in, definitely spend them as soon as possible. So even if you struggle outside the first zone of the game, you can slowly power up despite the repeated setbacks by means of cashing in cells for more items when the opportunity presents itself. And yeah, let's talk more about those weapons I keep mentioning. There's over 50 available weapons in the game, and you can carry any two you want, each assigned to a face button, and 2 tool/spell items, which occupy 2 shoulder buttons and are subject to a cooldown of some length. These will be your primary armaments against the litany of creatures that want you dead. Cool thing is, no 2 weapons behave in the same manner. You have fast weapons that don't hit for as much on each individual blow, and you have heavy weapons that are slow but deal tremendous damage each time they're swung, and then everything that lies in between these 2 extremes. And since you never know what you're going to find in any given run, and that secondary properties of the weapons can be randomized with tons of different modifiers, it means each run you'll likely be swapping between different playstyles even in the same run. To say nothing of the litany of special abilities innate to your character. For example, holding down and attacking while in midair will cause you to slam down, damaging nearby enemies and obstacles, and the superbly useful dodge roll you'll always have access to even when it shouldn't be physically possible, like if you're in mid-jump for instance. And almost all of these abilities and weapons fall into one of 3 types: brutality, tactics, and survival. These are color-coded as red, purple, and green. You'll receive mid-run power-ups that will bolster your overall max HP, and power with these color-coded stats and anything they influence, so hunting for these every run is a must. But wait, there's more! After you clear an area and a corresponding area boss, you'll oftentimes come across a specialized rune. This is a permanent upgrade you'll carry with you going forward that will allow you to take advantage of different mechanics. Like the first one I got was a plant-based rune that makes vines extend out of these little green globule things in order to extend my range of movement around the dungeon. And there's plenty more from there, I don't even have them all, but these abilities will let you find alternate exits out of any given section that you're in. And since every zone will offer a minimum of 2 ways to proceed, you can carve for yourself the path you figure works best for you. Every time you play through, you'll come out a bit stronger and a bit better experienced for it. Remember, there is no honor in roguelikes, so if you gotta kill a bunch of enemies by hanging out on a platform opposite theirs and throwing grenades at them over and over again, nothing can really stop you from doing so. But it's not over yet. Let's say you manage to cheat death by some mixture of luck and skill and you get to the end. Are you done? No, not by a long shot. You can then unlock boss cells, which gradually up the overall difficulty and resulting rewards with each time you set one in place. You can do this up to 5 additional times for greater challenges still, and they recently released the Rise of the Giant DLC expansion pack, which opens additional areas and an extended story. There are countless hours waiting to be experienced in Dead Cells, and I myself only scratched the surface of them all. Beating the game for the first time is just the beginning of a far greater journey ahead. And not just that, there's also daily run challenges where you're tasked with a set map seed for the day. Everyone who runs it that day will take on the same challenges and bonuses. This is a great way to practice and get used to some of the game's enemies and mechanics. Plus, the aforementioned difficulty raising system can be used to unlock certain doors in each run. You ever notice the doors with the dot patterns on them? Those only open when the difficulty, measured in boss cells again, is equal to or greater than the dots on the door. And the game's being updated all the time with free expansions and new challenges, so you're not liable to run out of things to do anytime soon. Now, was there anything I didn't like? Well, yes, it is a bit excessively grindy at bits. A really good run will often yield 30 to 50 cells, which is enough for a basic tier unlock on its own. But there's some stuff that will require several hundred cells poured into it, and that can feel excessive. Though there is something undeniably satisfying about pulling it off once you're strong enough to consistently kill several bosses in each run. Honestly, I didn't find much I disliked about the game apart from unique individual enemies that managed to bring an otherwise excellent run to a disheartening and sudden stop. But that aside, not too much to complain about. Overall, Dead Cells is one of the very best roguelikes I've ever had the pleasure of playing. It's endlessly exciting, challenging, and frenetic, and the breakneck action is one of the most satisfying experiences I've had in a while. The tongue-in-cheek writing and over-the-top bosses kept me grinning the whole way through each run, and the treasure hunting aspect just pushed all the right buttons for me to stay interested and invested, even hours and hours into my game time. And that is the final word on this bit of N-D-X-Cellence. This has been the Prisoner Snek. If you liked today's episode, hit the like button so I know, and leave a comment down below letting me know what your best run looked like. I'd be curious to know. And for more from me, you can hit the subscribe and bell icon so you can see my videos when they go live every week. Or you can head over to the Tomodachi Bros Podbean and YouTube mirrors to hear me team up with my closest bros, talk anime, movies, and more. Join me here every week from our obscure reviews, N-D-X-Cellence, and more. And I will see you there. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you're still watching, I just wanted to let you guys know that I wanted to extend a big thank you to all my viewers for helping us recently break the 250 subs milestone. That is crazy to me. The fact that we did it so quickly is all thanks to you and you guys supporting me, and it means the world to me. So I want to give a little something back in return. Between now and the time we hit the 500 subs mark, both on my YouTube discussion page tab and over at my Twitter at Hipster Snek, there is now an open AMA, or Ask Me Anything, where you guys can ask as many questions as you want. When we hit the 500 subs mark, I will sit down, make the video, and answer every question that doesn't get me banned off YouTube. The posts are already there and pinned, awaiting your input. I'm curious to see what you guys are curious about. So I'll see you at the 500 subs mark with all the answers that you've been craving, and I will see you there.